Today, we speak with one of my all-time favorite homeopathic heroes, UK homeopath Hilery Dorrian. I first learned about Hilery via some online lectures I did through CHE, Centre for Homeopathy Education, and then I've purchased every single one of her series of lectures, which she has put on herself. For the homeopaths listening, check the show notes on how to contact Hilery to be added to her mailing list for access to her past and future lectures. I was incredibly lucky to have received mentoring from Hilery a few months back, and it was truly a dream come true to be able to have her help me with some tricky cases. Hilery has been in practice for 40 years, and I think it's a testament to what an incredible career choice homeopathy is. You're able to work your own hours, which is wonderful when you have young children. You get to help people with their health and well-being. You can even work online if you choose. I really hope this episode will inspire many of our listeners to consider homeopathy as a great career choice. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now, your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to speak with my all-time favorite hero homeopath, Hilery Dorrian. Welcome, Hilery.
Thank you, Eugenie.
I am so the biggest fangirl. Your lectures are so amazing, and they've helped me so much in my practice. They've really challenged me a lot of the time as well. And one of the examples is, the bowel nosodes, where we were taught all that time ago, you give one dose of a remedy and you never repeat it again in 3 months. And then Hilery comes along and give it daily for 21 days. And my mind was blown. And now I give it for like 8 weeks and I don't even flinch. So you just have such an amazing way of making remedies come alive. So I wonder, Hilery, can you tell our listeners a little bit about how you first got introduced to homeopathy?
Okay, yeah. A long time ago now, in 1978, I started my career I was at university and doing something completely different, and a lecture was scheduled, an external lecture about acupuncture. And I thought, that sounds interesting. So quite untypically for me in a way, I went to listen to it. And it was like a light bulb had been switched on in my head. And I just I have to find a place to study that. This was the days before Wi-Fi, before you could type in, where can I start? And I had no idea where to start. And then I managed to track down a college in the south of England in Leamington Spa. And I got accepted for a place for the following year. So I started there in 78. And I qualified from there in 81. So I've been in practice for 40 years now, just over 40 years, in fact. And so I was practicing as a homeopath. And after a couple of years, I decided there was a little gap in my practice. I felt it was hard to treat acute problems. It was hard to treat children who don't like needles. And you can use pressure, but it's not quite the same. So I decided to study homeopathy. And when I studied homeopathy, I just fell in love with it, really. I like the process. I like the breadth of knowledge that's out there. I like the detective work. I like the more deep human interaction that's necessary. So it became my love, really. I did briefly go back and study Chinese herbs as well. But now my practice is probably 95% homeopathy. Some of my patients who've been with me since way back when, I will still do a bit of acupuncture for them, but I mostly now do homeopathy because I literally fell in love with it, and I've never fallen out of love with it.
After 40 years, that's pretty amazing.
After 40 years.
Yeah. Now, would you say there's a little bit of a crossover between traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy, or maybe not a crossover, but the one can certainly draw on the other, right?
Oh, absolutely. I guess the thing about them is that they're both energy medicines, and that sets them apart from orthodox medicine, even from herbal medicine, where we're using physical constituent parts. So they're both very strongly energy medicines. And I think that as homeopaths, we can learn quite a lot from TCM to help our patients, even to help refine the remedy selection sometimes by knowing which organs are actually shouting out here, adding a weight to a certain prescription. That if you're deciding between two remedies, you might think, actually, this is more liver I know this from understanding a bit about TCM, and so I'm going to go with the lycopodium rather than the other remedy you might have been thinking of. So yeah, there definitely is a crossover. And whilst I don't treat very much with acupuncture anymore, I'm always aware of how much my practice is influenced by the underlying knowledge of TCM. And I didn't realize it for a few years. And a few people pointed that out who were sitting in with me. And then I got it. And yeah, there's definitely a crossover.
And I know you've got some lectures coming up on that shortly. Is that right?
Yes, I have been. I'm going to be teaching early next year for Florida Society Conference. And so I've been meant to be doing the Florida Society Conference in person for a couple of years now, and we keep not being able to go because of COVID. And so we're going to try one more time next year. So it's been a little bit of a while coming. And once that has been done, then I'll probably make it available generally. But I want to keep it for them. I don't want everyone to have seen it and then not get such a successful conference. So I'll keep it under wraps until then. And I'm just spending a bit of time refining it, making it better, tidying it up.
Amazing. Now, you also, like I said before, an absolutely incredible lecturer, and you lecture at CHE, the College for Homeopathy Education, but you also have your own series of lectures that you put out. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is you enjoy about lecturing, and then also for the homeopaths listening, how they can get hold of your lecture series that you personally do?
Sure. I've been lecturing for about 25 years of my practice now, and I really, really enjoy it. I like the communication of it. I think if people like my lectures, I think what they do like about them is that they're kind of structured, so it makes them quite accessible. And I think it's just because of the way my mind works. You know, some people, they might do a mind map, and to me, that looks just completely chaotic. And I think your mind map is such an individual thing. Somebody else might go, I get that completely. I am, and somebody else might say, whoa, what's that? Because it's not how my mind works. So I just try to distill it down into the sort of essences of what matters to the remedy. And I might usually pick out what this person has to say about it, what this person has to say about it, the information that's out there. But then I'll always bring it back to my experience with it and all the things that I've seen time and time again outlined and expanded, just to try and make it both accessible, fun, hopefully entertaining. And I really enjoy it. The process actually of writing the lectures takes a lot longer than you might think.
I can imagine.
And it helps me because I have to get all that information that I know I've got in there, but I have to get it into a good order that makes sense, that follows a nice trajectory, and add in some cases. So it takes quite a lot of time to get them prepared. But I really, really do enjoy doing it. And probably during lockdown, when I wasn't able to go up and do a lot of lectures, when work was mainly online and wasn't so busy because everyone was in a bit of a tailspin, I decided to amuse myself and hopefully other people by doing a few lectures. So I started doing a series of webinars, which has just grown and grown, and the audience for them has grown. And they're all up on Vimeo. At the moment, there's 4 free lectures, all the no-sodes at the moment. And I'm going to be doing another free lecture this year. We still have to do Medarinum and Tuberculinum and Basilinum.
You've done Medarinum?
I've done Medarinum.
Yeah, because I remember the story of your daughter.
That's right.
And that's why I love your lectures, because you bring real stories into it and real cases, and that's why it gets stuck in your head. It's just the blue Smarties, I remember.
Yes, my goodness. Yeah, so there's maybe Tuberculinum and Thuya, I think I'm going to do. That's them. So they will be in the free lectures. And then there's just a selection of subjects that are, I'm interested in, lectures on OCD, subject close to my heart because of my younger daughter. And, women's problems, some expanded pictures of remedies, solanums, snakes. So, yeah, and I'm adding to them. I plan to do sort of maybe 2 or 3 of the paid lectures every year, and maybe 1 or 2 free ones every year for everyone who's joined up. I enjoy it.
And I know you get people to email you, then they get added to your list.
Anybody who wants to join can just email me. My email is just my name, Hilery Dorrian. I've got a bit of a weird spelling, which is Hillary with an E. So it's Hilery Dorrian, just at AOL.com. So just my name and AOL.com, and that's it. And if you email me and say, can I join up, I will send you a list of what's available and put you on the mailing list.
And we'll have that email in the show notes as well. I just want to find out from you, have you got an all-time favorite lecture? Like, is there a topic that you've lectured on that has been a favorite for you?
Oh, gosh, so many lectures. It's an interesting question, Eugenie, because there are some lectures that I think, I don't really like teaching this. And it might be because I don't feel my lecture's quite good enough. And I feel like maybe I'd like more time I don't know what it is that makes a lecture. I really like it. I guess it's lectures that from time after time people really enjoy, people laugh at a lot or recognize a lot or say, I love that, thank you. So maybe the ones that become favorites are the ones that work really, really well. I've got a few that I'm not so keen on doing. I teach for CHE, so I teach a lot of their lectures, and I like most of them, but there are some that feel that I particularly like the lectures that I know that there's not that many people teach them. So the endocrine sarcodes, I enjoy teaching the endocrine sarcodes because I know often for people, they're remedies that they don't know a lot about. And they were like, wow, these are really, really useful remedies. And probably bowel nosodes because I love them so much. And I really like to get that message across to people. These remedies will transform your practice. So I really like to get that. So that might be my number one, and the endocrine might be my number two. But there's a lot of ones that I really enjoy teaching.
Well, they happen to be the two that has transformed my practice the most is the bowel nosodes. And just for our listeners, bowel nosodes, I say kind of like homeopathic probiotics. They're not, but that is the easiest way to explain it just to the general public. We have these incredible remedies that are just able to really, balance your gut flora. But not just that, it's got a flow-on effect. Even, we've got bowel nosodes that are even good for PTSD type symptoms and for OCD and all sorts of different things. So these are powerful remedies, and where I found this lecture of yours so helpful is that there really is limited information on this. And the way that we get taught how to prescribe it is to be super careful of these remedies. Like you give one dose and you don't repeat it again in 3 months, like I said earlier. And so your lecture has been really transformative and eye-opening for me. And the results that I've had in clinic because of that has been amazing. But I'll tell you what, the endocrine lecture has been next level. So also for our listeners, we have homeopathic remedies that are made from the hypothalamus, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the anterior pituitary, estrogen, progesterone, all of these incredible substances, which can help you with absolutely anything from, actually milk in the breasts when you're not pregnant or breastfeeding. The anterior pituitary remedy, I've had such good results with that. And it's actually much more common than we realize because since your lecture, that's now something, if I suspect that's the remedy, I'll ask somebody, do you happen to have milk in your breast when you're not breastfeeding? And they're like, yes, I've never told anybody. And you give them the remedy and it goes away. Or pineal gland has been amazing. Here in Perth, we have what we call FIFO workers, fly in, fly out. And they do shift work and their sleep patterns are completely messed up. And you give them the pineal gland remedy and they sleep so well. So,
it's lovely to hear because that's ultimately why we do what we do. And it's really nice because sometimes when you're working in practice, you see the immediate effect of your remedies. Somebody comes back and they're like, wow. So it's very gratifying. When you're teaching, you get the gratification if the students have enjoyed it. But the reason why we do it, which is to help people in the world, is at a slight remove. So it's always really gratifying when somebody says, I really helped this person, or I got to a remedy that I wouldn't have got to, and this person was well. So it's lovely to hear that the remedies have been really out there helping people, because that is what it's all about. That's the purpose of disseminating the information, apart from to make a living so that I can keep doing it. It is really gratifying to know that even with teaching that you're still really helping people through the world. It's nice to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, this episode could very quickly turning into me just praising you for an hour, because I've said before, the work that you put out has helped me so much in my practice to be able to help so many other people. So it's just wonderful. Now, as a practitioner with 4 decades of experience, which still blows my mind because you look amazing, how has your practice changed over the 4 decades? How has homeopathy changed over this time? I mean, it sounds like, it's probably a little bit different different and not. It's just we have so much more information these days. But how do you feel things have changed?
In some ways, not at all. In the process, not at all. In the actual practice, maybe quite a bit. I would say that my patients nowadays are more well read about homeopathy and about health in general. My patients probably nowadays know much more about a diet and the benefits of exercise, healthy lifestyles, and so on than maybe they did when I started. An example of when I started as an acupuncturist, if people said to me, so what do you do for a living? And I would say, I'm an acupuncturist. They'd say, sorry, agriculture. I'll say, no, not agriculture, acupuncture. Nowadays, even if people haven't tried acupuncture, everybody has heard about it. And, that's because since I started, we have the internet and the information that's at our disposal. So that's one thing, is I think people are a little bit more interested and educated about health matters. The process, which is, somebody comes in and you spend an hour talking to them, getting as much information as you can about a particular problem, their history, their family history, and their character, and all the things that we need to know. We're prescribing a remedy that kind of is a totality match as best as possible for all of those symptoms. And I guess that process will never change. What changes slightly for me with practice, I had a fairly classical upbringing in homeopathy, as I guess most people do. But I had a big influence from my friend, teacher, and mentor, the late, great Robert Davidson, who said that we must practice appropriopathy. That means that sometimes for patients, there's something else that's appropriate that isn't in what you do every day. And it opened my eyes to sometimes prescribing more than one remedy at a time. Now, this still causes some sort of level of shock and horror in very tightly classical communities. And I hate the animosity between the kind of classical and other people who might call them practical. I don't really call myself anything because I just do what I do. But sometimes we do get really good results I'm always looking for the totality prescription, but nowadays I might be more likely to add in maybe a thyroid daily to support the thyroid, a sarcode or a nosode or something that's going to do some drainage, support some underlying systems that need supporting. I believe that way we get slightly faster results, not better results, but the benefit of that is that people have limited money, they have limited patience, and it's not that the classical on its own works any less well. We get there in the end, but just that sometimes by the addition of, say, thyrodanum 6C in a certain patient, you might say they'll come back and they'll feel, so many changes. And the same, even adding in perhaps some cramp bark for somebody with severe period pains. They will eventually go with the constitutional remedies, and the acute remedies aren't getting rid of them at a deeper level. But if we can make them comfortable in the short term and allow the deeper remedies to do their job, it keeps them with us. If we can keep our patient happy and confident in what we do and staying with us, we can easily get them better. But healing is a process. It takes a long time. It might be a couple of years before somebody is properly better. And if they drop out after 2, they feel, waste of money. We feel undervalued. And it's just not nice for anyone. So it's really good to be able to kind of keep your patient by understanding what's going on, supporting them as best as we can, both with the constitutional remedy and sometimes another support remedy. So that I would say is maybe the biggest change over the years, is that not quite polypharmacy. That's I'm not throwing remedies at a patient, but the idea of looking at some physical supports along with the constitution probably has crept in. I would say maybe that's the biggest change. Being able to do it online, that's another more
And that helps. And what's your longest standing patient that you've had?
Oh, I've got loads that have been with me since almost the month or two that I qualified way back then.
That's amazing.
I've had some lovely, and what's nice is that I've got some really lovely, very, very old patients in their sort of 90s who've been with me since then, who I've seen them since they were younger than I am now. And that's nice. And the other thing that's nice is that I have the babies that I used to treat. And that's lovely. You know, I have children that I treated with maybe ear infections as they were babies and then as teenagers. And then maybe I didn't see them for a while when they were young women out in the world. And then they got married and had babies. And so they brought their babies in. So sometimes I've got 3 generations of a family over that 40-year period. And that's really nice too. And I tell you, these babies of mums whose mums used homeopathy, they are super healthy, really.
Wow.
It does show that kind of generational thing of using homeopathy through the generations, how it strengthens your overall constitution.
That's amazing. And then my other question for you was, have you noticed the types of conditions that you're treating have changed in the last 40 years?
Maybe not a lot, I wouldn't say. But I definitely see more autoimmune problems than I used to. They've always been around. I've always treated autoimmune problems. But kind of now it seems that almost everybody has some autoimmune problem. And that's, you know, probably the biggest change over the 40 years. As I say, we've always seen it. And there was always certain types that were common. But yeah, it just seems that now that would be one of the biggest changes. And I do think that as homeopaths, we tend to see people who are a bit educated about their health. They know about homeopathy. They're willing to pay to come and see a homeopath. So we're not even looking at the worst health in the country. You know, no doubt the world is getting less and less healthy. For the people who are less educated about diet and exercise, who live off fast foods, who will immediately turn to a statin if they've got high cholesterol, instead of maybe thinking, right, I'll change my diet, do something about it, change my lifestyle, and see if I can get it down naturally first. So we don't even see the sickest people, because a lot of the time the sickest people are less educated about life and their diet and their lifestyle, and therefore aren't always going to come to homeopathy because it's a private medicine, essentially. And that upsets me a bit. I would like to, there are low-cost clinics for people. I will always say to people, I have some absolutely amazing patients who are on universal credit. They've got 3 kids. They have very, very little money. And I always say, look, if you need something, call. It doesn't matter, but they're often the people who will most likely say, no, I've saved it. I knew how much it was going to be and I've got it here for you. I just love when people who you don't expect to be using homeopathy for themselves and their kids, it's lovely. So I would like to see more of that, more education, really. But the types of diseases, I would just say more autoimmune.
And as a mother of 2 gorgeous women, how has homeopathy empowered you as a mother to be able to raise them to be healthy?
Yeah, I mean, that's another gift, isn't it, really, when we have children. I don't know how people get through their lives without homeopathy.
I often say that too.
I think there's so often it's saved my life, both literally and figuratively, in so many situations. And I just don't know how people manage without it. And, the one thing is it always gives you hope. There'll be a remedy for that. Might take a bit of time to find it, but we can help. We always know that. So having little babies and, neither of my children went to the GP. I don't think either of them have ever even had an antibiotic, certainly not until they were grown up. And that speaks volumes, I think, for homeopathy, because I see kids who they've had 10 lots of antibiotics in 18 months. So I think, having healthy kids And using homeopathy for them speaks for itself. So having homeopathy as a mum, the chamomile. How do people live without chamomilla?
I have no idea. I often say that.
Without chamomilla. Honestly, if people knew what it could do, they would. Sometimes I see people and I say, I could help that. I've got some chamomilla. Would you like one? It's really soothing. I think they're teething. And they're like, I don't know what you're offering. No thanks. But even people I know who know me, but just don't use homeopathy, if I say, I could give you some chamomilla if you like, it's really good for them teething. And they'll go, oh, that's really sweet. But no, it's okay.
Yeah.
And if you knew what it would do, you would be biting my hand off. It's funny, isn't it? I said, okay, no worries. People have to come to it in their own time. So having that, bringing up a family, it's such a blessing. And the second thing is that I was in private owned practice. So basically I can take off what time I want, what works for me, still have my practice, maybe quieter in those early years. But actually, it's why I started having a receptionist. My very good friend, Teresa, said, I'll look after Emily whilst you're seeing clients. And gradually, as the baby slept, she would pick up the phone and take a message for me. And I found it so useful that even after the children went to nursery, I said, would you like to still keep working for me? And from that day onwards, I've always had a receptionist. And if you have a busy practice, I cannot recommend it highly enough. I couldn't do half of what I do without my support network behind me. They are just so brilliant. And, they will send out remedies. They deal with all the appointments because they're all homeopaths themselves. They can take an acute case on the phone for me. They just allow me to do more than I could if they weren't there. And that came out of working around a family, really. So, as a mum, it's been a blessing in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. And now you have a daughter who's a homeopath, so second generation. How is she going with her practice, and what are your hopes and dreams for her practice?
Hi homies, I just want to take a quick moment to ask for your help. My mum works really hard to create great content for you to enjoy. So if you found value from this podcast, please consider donating to keep the Homeopathy Hangout podcast going. You can do this by visiting www.eugeniekruger.com and click the donate button at the top. Every donation of $10 or more will receive a shout out on a future episode. Thanks!
Hi homies, just a quick break in the episode to ask for your help. Producing this show takes a lot of time and money, and I would really appreciate your support so I can continue producing new episodes for you to enjoy. You can visit www.buymeacoffee.com/hangout to make a donation from as little as $5. Believe me, every little bit helps. I'd also like to invite you all to my Facebook group called Homeopathy Hangout, where we can continue the conversation. And for my Australian listeners, check out my amazing range of homeopathic kits, remedies, crystals, supplements, and more at www.eugeniekruger.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. Thanks for your time.
She's doing brilliantly. Is a really, really good practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just say that because I'm her mum. I think her patients would tell you that. She's very insightful. She's got good emotional intelligence. She's got a good brain for doing all that's necessary to be a good homeopath. And when she told me, 6-7 years ago now, Mum, I'm not really keen on what I'm doing. I'd like to do something that makes a bit of a difference. And I said, okay, what are you thinking of? She said, I'm thinking about homeopathy. I said, oh, brilliant. I said, well, come up to CHC one day, sit in, have a look, see if you think it's for you.
Mm-hmm.
And she did. And she said she wanted to study homeopathy. And I said, come and sit in with the college at CHC, see if you like it. So she did that for the weekend. And she absolutely loved it. She really, really enjoyed it. And that started her on that journey to practice. And now, because I'm semi-retiring, I'm not taking on new clients. And so the new clients are seen by 2 homeopaths who work very closely with me, one of them being my daughter. So I say I'm going to supervise the cases for the first 3 sessions, make sure that all the information's been gathered properly, make sure there's a good overview of what remedies are going to be useful here. And it works really well. And she's going to be great. And people say to me, "Oh, you must be really happy that she's a homeopath." And I say, all I ever want for my children is for them to be happy, whatever they do. And, as long as they find that happiness, that contentment and their place in the world, I don't mind what they do. But it is nice to have a homeopath in the family. And, when we chat, we can do the homeopathic shorthand, she was a bit of a platina. So I had to, other people, what does that mean?
You don't need to don't need to explain.
We love that homeopath. Or you can just, somebody who's, acting up, you can just go, like a podium. It just gives you a shorthand, and it's nice. It's good, and it's just nice that, because it's in her blood. She's been a homeopath for years. Her dad's a homeopath, not my husband, who's her stepdad, not Ian Watson. And so it's almost perhaps not unusual that that's what's happened, that she's wanted to be a homeopath. But it's lovely.
I should share that joke with our audience as well, that Hilary's husband is called Ian Watson, but I have also just today recorded an episode with the homeopath Ian Watson, and it's not the same guy. So just if anyone...
And there's a lot of confusion.
And the homeopath Ian Watson says he actually quite enjoys that your husband takes... He's the one that gets all the Facebook friend requests, thinking that it's him, but it's not. So we were just having a laugh at that before we started recording earlier. So, Hilery, I wonder, have you got some... Actually, I've got a question here for you. Do you think there's anything that homeopathy can't help with?
Can't help with? No.
Yeah.
Because we help on so many different levels. There are some problems that are surgical problems. They have to be dealt with surgically. It might be somebody's spinal realignment. It might be an accident. It might be
appendix.
There are some things that are surgical problems. Now, if we were out in the middle of nowhere with no resources for surgery and only homeopathy, I like to think that perhaps in your situation, we would have got on top of it and not lost you. But we don't have to take those risks. We have surgery there, and sometimes it is the best resource. And as homeopath, I think that it's good not to be too militant about people being, we want everyone to have the choice to understand that people have their own intelligence, they know their own body, they know their own needs. They've often done a bit of research. And if that's what they've decided is right for them, who am I to say it's not? I might give them more education as to why that might not be the best road in the first instance, and that how this is the thing that we could try. But, we have to be respectful of other people's opinions. I don't usually find that ordinary medicines get in the way of my prescriptions. And the best way for people to start to think they maybe won't take the ordinary medicines is to get them so much better that they think, this really works for me. Maybe I'm going to tackle this, it might be statins. I want to tackle their cholesterol without taking a medication anymore. So I don't take people off their medications by and large, and I don't tell them not to take them. I might say, well, we probably can help so that you might not need to. But there are situations where people need orthodox medication and that we can't take them off, and that they need surgery. But can we help them? Always, whether it's helping them recover after surgery, whether it's helping them with their anxiety about the state they're in or their pain levels. So a lot of the time we're looking for a kind of cure, if you like, of some underlying chronic disease, whether it be eczema or asthma. And fantastically, as homeopaths, we very often get that. And it's interesting as well, when my daughter first qualified, a patient who I couldn't take on asked if Emily would see her. Through one of my patients, she said she's very, very sick. She's got cancer. She can't do anything. We just hope that she'd be able to have one last holiday in New York, which is where some of her family, I think, are. And Emily said, oh my goodness, that's quite a big case to take on. I said, look, it's a case. It's no different to any other case. You look and you find the similarities and you prescribe on the totality. I said, with cases like this, you have to be prepared. Sometimes the patient is going to die. Some people are so sick that, there isn't time to but we can support them on on that part of their journey, keep them comfortable, keep them calm, bring up their energy. I said, and have to make peace with the fact that maybe this is one that we're not going to save. And I think that's a lesson that we have to learn, and not to feel that we failed, because some patients were never going to make it. But what we've done is make their transition easier, make that part of, and patients will always say, thank you for everything you did for my mum. So she took the patient on. And I actually asked her this morning, how's your patient? She said, absolutely fantastic. Now that's 4 years ago that this lady was wondering whether she could have a final holiday in New York. And she said she's all clear. She's been given the all clear, and she's gone from strength to strength. So she's obviously delighted. The patient's obviously delighted. So we always have that view. Yes, of course I can help you. Quite how far I can help you has yet to be seen, because we're all individuals and we all have underlying issues that we live with. But yes, I don't think there's anybody that we can't help, is the short answer to your question.
Excellent. Now, Hilery, you also have a skincare range. I think you co-designed it with somebody else. Is that right?
That's right.
And you've won some awards recently as well.
Yeah, you've won lots of awards, which is very gratifying. Yeah.
Amazing. Can you tell our audience a little bit about it and where they can get hold of these products?
Yeah, the products are for acne. Mm-hmm. They're natural products. They're all completely natural, rely on herbs and plants in order to try and heal the skin. You can buy them online, skin-genius.co.uk. The essential range is foaming facial cleanser, a moisturizer, and a leave-on overnight gel. Great for teenage skins. It also, we have discovered, really by serendipity with mums using their children's products, that it's brilliant for acne rosacea. Not, but it's not a true acne where you have it's actually a vascular problem. But the leave-on gel is also brilliant for rosacea. So yeah, that's just a little. I had a skincare company for a long time with my friend and fellow homeopath Jonathan Stalick. We sold that company that was making eczema products, and after a few years, one of my friends approached me and said, I'd like to do this. Will you help me? She does most of the work, to be fair. I help with the formulas, and so Skin Genius, and that's a nice little diversion.
That's excellent. I have one more question for you. So it feels like there's a bit of a resurgence in homeopathy. And I don't know, maybe it's in my little microcosm here in Perth where, we've got a group of 800 plus mums who are all passionate about homeopathy. We've got our little group and these mothers are just so empowered and using homeopathy to do amazing things with their kids. And now many of them are going on to study homeopathy. There's a group of about, 7 or 8 of them now who are studying it. Now, you were very young when you started studying homeopathy, and Emily was also very young when you started. Most homeopaths have usually, most of us discover homeopathy through our kids, and then by the time you get to study, you're usually in your mid-30s or sometimes 40 or even later. And sometimes I think that's a good thing because it always feels like you need a little bit of life experience behind you. But you were very young when you started. Emily's very young. And I just spoke to Ian Watson, obviously, before, and he, straight out of school, went to become a homeopath. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's really young, was wanting to get into homeopathy as a profession straight from school?
I would say that you refine and you change and you expand your consciousness and your abilities as you grow. But there's something really lovely about starting young and growing with the process. Yeah, I was 19 when I started. Emily probably was 25 when she started. And Ian Watson straight out of school. Whereas a lot of the people I was at college with were in their 40s or 50s and even in their 60s. There's no age bar to homeopathy. I think good homeopaths are people who have a good emotional intelligence and are able to listen and empathize and work out what is going to be helpful. And there are people with good emotional intelligence and empathy at every age. So youth doesn't bar you from being a person who can listen and understand. We may not have been there in our lives, but it doesn't mean that we can't understand it. There are situations that I've never been in my life yet, but it doesn't mean that I wouldn't be able to understand how it might have felt. My job isn't to to know how it felt, because how I think it might feel isn't necessarily how it feels for this person. Our job is to find out how they felt. We can all find that out. In fact, I sometimes think that this is something that homeopaths might do if they don't take a good enough case, is, there was a grief. They're immediately thinking Matron Muir or Ignatia, their father died. When I say to students, so Ignatia, why? Well, her father had just died. I said, and how did she feel about that? Well, I didn't ask. So I say, when you have a timeline and you know what happened to them when they were 13, 17, 21, 20, you know what happened to them all the way through their lives, but you don't know how they felt about any of it. So you're prescribing for yourself. You're prescribing for how you would have felt in those situations. My father died and I was in a terrible, I said, he might have beaten her senseless. She might have thought, great, I'll get rid of the old bugger. We don't know unless we ask, So our experience is understanding how a situation might feel because we've been there. But if we're not careful, we can impose our own view of what happened. Whereas when you're young, you maybe don't have that because you haven't been divorced. You maybe haven't lost a parent. You maybe haven't had a child. So you're not putting imposing your own view on it, and you're less likely to be prescribing for yourself and fully prescribing for the other person. Just a thought. So I think there's advantages at every age, when you do have experience, when you know how to deal with something, when you're not embarrassed by grief or by sexual stuff or, the things that come with experience. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some brilliant things that you have from starting young.
I love that you've said that. That's so great. And I just want to check, Hilery, is there anything else that you want to bring across to our audience, and also anywhere else that they can get hold of you? We've got the email address that I'll put in the show notes for any homeopaths who are interested in your lectures. There's Skin Genius, if anyone wants to get hold of those products. Anything else that you want to promote to the general
public? If anybody wants to see any of our wonderful homeopaths under my supervision, I can give you the clinic number, which they can ring. Leave a message. Somebody will always get back to you. And that is, if you're out of the UK, 0044 1342 836985. And that's about it. But you're talking about the young people coming into homeopathy and how in doing what you're doing and teaching all these young people, I think that's fantastic. And it's a sort of testament to your enthusiasm passing down to these people who think, yeah, I can do it. They try homeopathy, it works, I can do it. And then I'd love to be like you, Jeannie, doing that. It's marvelous, I think, to do that. Encourage that younger generation into homeopathy. We have to encourage the younger generation, and otherwise we're not going to keep going through the generation. So I think that's a great testament to your what you do out there in the community as well as in your practice. So
thank you so much. My son is 10 and my daughter is 7, and she's been saying since she was 5 that she's going to be a homeopath and work with me. But she said she wants to be an animal homeopath, and on the weekend she's going to be an artist. So they are what
started already.
Yeah. They are what drive me, because I want homeopathy alive and thriving for them when they are adults, so they can, they are my reason for living. They're my reason for doing what I do. I want to keep homeopathy alive for hopefully grandchildren one day, so they can use it and have access to this safe natural medicine.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time today, Hilery.
It's a pleasure.
It's just wonderful chatting with you. And I know you're about to jet off on a plane and then on a boat. So enjoy and have a great holiday.
I'll do my very, very best to enjoy it. I think it'll be too hard somehow.
I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So thanks, Eugenie.
Bye.
Bye.